Okay, welcome everyone to this session of the Agile communities of Lean Agile Delivery Coaching Network and Digital Transformation in London. Mostly based in London, but actually with this virtual possibility, we can move across the world. So we have people here from in a lot of parts of Europe. So good to see you, all of you, and good to have here Valerie. Just a quick introduction to the event, very quick, so I will leave the stage to Valerie. We are going to record this session. You can make your question during the conversation that Valerie is leading. We are asking just to raise your hand if you have a question, or maybe type your question in the chat. I will facilitate the order of the questions and so the responses. And from time to time, also Valerie will ask if you have questions, so you can use your raise hand feature in Zoom to respond to that. So this is about today's event. About Valerie, actually, I met Valerie a few months ago during an event. Actually, it was exactly this event. And I found this event really interesting. I would like to use the word disruptive because for me was really a sort of epiphany of explaining. Let me say, try to explain why a market suddenly explode that actually didn't explode, let me say, 10 years before. That was quite interesting for me. So I asked her to share this learning with our community, and here Valerie accepted and very kindly share this with us. So actually that's everything from me. Again, I will put some references to the community in the chat. And Valerie, thank you for coming here, and please, the stage is yours.
No, thank you so much. Hello, everybody. Nice of you to join me this evening. I'm in Scotland. I'm in the centre of Scotland, as Corrado said. I live in a little place called Tillicoultry. It's close to Stirling, if any of you know Scotland well. I'm just going to share screen so that you can see some things. You can see some drawings that I have created to go. So you should now all be able to see a nice big orange screen. Can we see that? Yes, lovely. Okay.
Sorry, I wasn't. Yes, you can go.
Yeah, brilliant. Okay, so my session is called It's Simply Not That Simple, Navigating Complexity with Curiosity and Collaboration. And as Corrado said, I did this session with a group that he was part of just recently. Do it with a lot of clients and a lot of meetups. So if you like what you hear and you want me to come to your community or your workplace, then just let me know. So who am I? I'm an independent agility coach. I'm a geek about human behavior and complexity and systems. And I've been on a journey over this past few years, which has resulted so far in me creating a model to help us lead through complexity and uncertainty better. So the model is called the McLean Loop of Leadership Agility. Yes, I named it after myself. I'm trying to own it. I'm trying to not be that shy female stereotype that doesn't take pride in her own work. So it's called the McLean Loop. I will introduce you to it later on, and how it sort of came about. So what we'll be learning about today, I'm going to give you some context around some of the anti-patterns that we see, and I'm going to tell you why our brains aren't helping us to turn those anti-patterns into helpful patterns. I'll give my views on how agility can help, and I'll give you the model to take away from you. The reason that I'm kind of thinking and learning about all this stuff and putting all of this together is because I think that we're asked to do lots of things in our lives, and especially in our work lives. And I think things are taking longer and the results are getting less predictable. And that can cause quite a lot of frustration. And I'm trying to help that. So I'm going to tell you a story, and I need to tell you that the story is completely fictional. It is based on patterns. It's based on things that I've seen, experiences of mine, experiences of others, but just really on patterns that we see coming through a lot of the time in the workplace. So I want to introduce you to our company called Burns. And I want you to imagine that all of us are in a factory in the 1920s in America. And we're all from different parts of the world. We don't have a common language. And we're all working together to mass produce cars. And we can't speak to each other. We don't have a common language, but it doesn't really matter that we can't speak to each other because we don't have to speak to each other. I know exactly what input I'm going to get. I know exactly what I'm going to do to that input, and I know exactly what I'm going to output the other side. And the people before and after me in the production line know exactly what they are doing as well. And every time we put all the pieces together and we create the exact same car, it's repeatable and it's predictable. We're always creating these same cars. And Burns are quite successful over the years. We create lots of these cars. We sell them to people. We sell them to people all over the world. And then we start to create different kinds of cars. And more people are buying the cars and we make money and it works really well. The way that we work is a thing that I call command and control. Basically, head office create the design and the specifications, and then they tell the people in the manufacturing plants what to do. They do what they're told and they make money and they sell cars. And they're the market leader in many markets globally. So they're doing pretty well with this approach. But if we fast forward about 80 years, we're now looking at electric cars. And at this point, Burns are about 5 years into the planning and resources that they need for their first electric car. And although they hoped that it would be in the world about maybe 2 years ago, that's not happened, but they're pretty sure they're going to be good to go in 6 months. They're doubling down on the control to make sure it's 100% the way that it needs to be. And then suddenly, a new company is formed and puts a car out into the world, an electric car. This company has never made a car, ever. But their first car is an electric car and is quite successful. And Burns are thinking, well, we're not feeling too funny about this. Like, we know how to make cars. This company's got nothing on us. But what they do, just to be sure, is they do what they know brings them success, and they tighten control because they need to make sure that they get this launch right. So eventually their car is ready to come into the world. And let's see what happens. I wonder. Oh no, we've had a complete catastrophe. This car doesn't even start to give Burns the money that it needs to give them in order to be considered even the tiniest bit of a success. It's a complete non-starter, it's a complete disaster, and Burns are in a bit of a pickle. And back in the head office, they're saying, well, we don't understand what's happened here. We know how to make cars. We've been doing it for decades. So they start to figure out what's going on. And they say, well, have our people lost their touch? Or are our staff trying to sabotage us? Or are the consumers being brainwashed? But no, none of that is true. This company was doing what they knew, what they were comfortable with, and what's been successful for them in the past. Command and control, as I call it, is all they know, and it's all they've ever needed to know. And it's always worked for them. If they've been more successful, they've got validation that they're doing the right thing. And if it's been less successful, then they've tightened control, because control is what brings them success in their eyes. But I'm sorry to break it to you, folks. The truth is that it's simply not that simple anymore. And this is a pattern. I don't know if you recognize some of the things that I've just been talking about, or some of the feelings that you get when you're unchallenged in your market or your work. And the behaviors that come about as a response to that challenge or threat is often the opposite of what we actually need to do. So I want to help us understand why that is. And I love this quote to help us start to unpick that. This is Gary Hamel in The Future of Management. Right now, your company has 21st century internet-enabled business processes, mid-20th century management processes, all built atop 19th century management principles. And I think that this is true for many of us. We might not be working in 19th century organizations, but the things that have come before us are influencing the things that we're doing and the systems that are built around us. There's also acknowledgement that the world is changing more than it ever has before. So nearly 70% of executives agree that their industry will change more in the next 5 years than it did in the previous 50. So if we think about the automotive industry as an example, we can't predict with any accuracy what fuel cars will run on in 10 years' time. We have an idea, we think it will be electric, but there's rapid changes going on. And I've seen hydrogen buses in several places now. So how long is it going to be before hydrogen is brought to the car market? Or how long is it going to be before something else becomes a thing that we use to fuel our cars? How do we know what's happening in the future? AI is another great one. I hear people, I actually saw a conference program today, and it said how AI is going to impact your business. And I'm like, how do you know how AI is going to impact my business? There's things happening in parts of the world, in companies that nobody knows about yet, that are going to impact my business. How can you tell me how AI is going to impact my business in the next 5 years? We just don't know. And that's because we're living in complex adaptive systems. If we change one thing here, everything else changes as well. And that's what's happened here. So if we think back to Burns and back to the 1920s, everything was repeatable and predictable. And I'm not trying to suggest that complexity wasn't there, but it was certainly less noticeable than what it is today. And nobody back then could have predicted the limitations of mass production when it was so successful. But now complexity is everywhere. We still have things with definitive outcomes. And by that, I mean, if I do this, then this will happen. But there's lots of other elements now that are no longer repeatable and predictable. And it's those bits that we need to take a new approach on. So as Burns was changing over the years, so were many other car companies. And consumers started to have choices. And cars weren't just mechanical anymore. There was comfort options, entertainment options, and most of these included electrics and software. And now we have autonomous vehicles. There's driverless buses in Edinburgh. Where are we going next? The manufacturers now have more choices. Their supply chains are completely different. If we think even back to the 70s, Japanese car manufacturers redefined the relationship between cost and quality. They were able to make a quality car for a low cost, and that had never happened before. And we've all seen marketing that can change the world, ad campaigns that completely change the consumer market. So there's all these marketing decisions that come into the mix too. And it's not just that, and it's not just our products, and it's not just our tech. We now create services for people. And consumers want instant feedback and they want instant attention. If you don't give that to them, then somebody else will. And there's so many variables, not much is repeatable anymore. So what do we have to do to deal with all of this? Well, it's simply not that simple. Once again, humans are unpredictable. Humans have access to a lot more stuff now, and that means that we need to change. But there's a problem with that too, and that problem is mindset. So I hear people say all the time, we just need an agile mindset, or we just need a growth mindset. And I hear people blame others for failing to change and failing to accept change. But I think that that's not fair. Simply not that simple. We can't keep blaming individuals for their inability to change, because change is hard. Change is cognitive load that is difficult for people. So what is to blame? I don't think it's really anyone's fault. I think we've grown up around certain styles of management that are suited for certainty and suited for definitive outcomes. And it's instinctive that we fall into the habit of using those styles when we face a new challenge. We start giving instructions, we start telling people what to do, and we start to try to control the outcomes. And those styles of management that are suited for certainty are still perfectly well suited when there is a definitive answer. If you know that when you do something, you know exactly what's going to happen when you've done it, then those styles of management are perfect for that. But we do, however, need something different. We do need a new tool because we're not listening to the system when we try to control it, and we search for certainty when there is very little. So I want to ask you a question now, and if you can use your hand up feature on Zoom to tell me if you think that you are a leader. So who thinks that they are a leader? Could you put your hand up to let me know? Got 1, 2. This is when I might need your help, Corrado. I can see 5, but I'm presuming there's going to be more than that. Corrado, can you let me know?
Sorry, I realized that I was on mute. Yeah, we have 6 hands on.
6 hands, and we've got 18 people on the call. So
yes,
only 6 of you believe that you are leaders. Well, let me tell you now that just by spending your, what day are we on? Tuesday? An hour of your Tuesday here with me makes me believe that you are all leaders. Because I believe that a leader is someone who influences others to take effective action. So that's anyone on this call, any of your peers, your team members, literally anyone. Leaders don't need to have the answers. And I think that's what people often think. How can I be a leader? I don't know everything. But I believe that leaders shouldn't have the answers unless something is repeatable and predictable, because the reality is there are no answers. And that's because it's simply not that simple. I think leading needs to mean something else. And that's what I want to help with. That's why I've done this piece of work that I'm sharing with you.
Yeah, 1 second, Valerie. Apologies.
Yeah.
Manjit, your hand is still on. Have you some question for Valerie? No, okay. Raise it down. Go ahead.
No?
Go ahead.
Okay. Happy to take questions at any time. So please just raise your hand or put it in the chat if you do have a question for me. We're going to go back to the story now. So we're back to Burns and we're meeting Henry. So Henry is the project lead for electric car Take 2. Lucky him, you know, lucky him. He's been working at Burns for 15 years and he's working with his mentor, who's called Mel. Now, Mel is a particularly awesome person. She just happens to have read all of the same books and websites and listened to the same podcasts and watched all the same videos as I have. These are all of my references. You will be able to access that if you would like. I'll give you a link at the end where you can get onto my website and get all of those things. But Mel is awesome. So Mel's having a chat with Henry. And Henry shares that he's been given this project and he's absolutely terrified about it. And Mel asks him why he's so scared. And he says, I don't really know where to start. I know we need to do something different, but I don't know anything different to what I've been doing here at Burns for the last 15 years. And that has been led from the top, decisions made on his seniority level-ish, and then instructions given to those below. He's also been told that he's going to have autonomy, and that's quite scary to him because he thinks, well, I don't know the answers. I don't really want this autonomy thing. I feel really scared about that. So Mel asks him what that might be like, and he said, feels weird, it feels uncomfortable, I don't really know. So Mel says to him, okay, let's draw it. What comes to your mind when you think about this autonomy. And this is what he drew. So he drew this and he said, it feels a bit like this. It feels like a monster. On the inside, I'm terrified. I feel like I'm being pulled in all directions and I don't know what to do. And on the outside, I think I'm a bit spiky, but I'm desperately clinging on to anything stable and anything to keep me safe. And Mel says, oh, that's your Bruno. Bear with me, but wait, we don't talk about Bruno. Any Encanto fans in the call, you will know exactly what I mean. If you haven't seen Encanto and haven't heard We Don't Talk About Bruno, you'll have absolutely no clue. But bear with me and come with me on this. So we don't talk about Bruno, but Mel thinks that we should talk about Bruno. So she says to Henry, your Bruno is part of you. It's your defense mechanism. It makes you feel and want to do things that don't make sense. And that's to protect you from scary things like uncertainty and unpredictability. And it's caused when your brain senses a threat. And Dan Siegel calls it flipping your lid. He's got a hand-brain model, which helps you to understand. Basically, when you're calm, your brain is like this and nice and connected. And then when you sense a threat, you flip your lid and the pieces of your brain can't talk to each other properly. And you start to do things that don't make sense and that aren't rational. There's a link to a video there that explains that a lot better than I will right now. But it's a really good one to help you understand the difference between calm brain and threatened brain. So Mel tells Henry that you need to notice your Bruno, you need to really feel it, you need to sit with it, and you need to accept it and treat it with kindness because it's not Henry's fault that this is happening to him. Everyone unconsciously has this safety mechanism. It's to keep us safe, and we're all different. This is Mel's Bruno that you can see on screen there now. Everybody, when they have that flipped lid and their Bruno comes out, they feel different inside and they look different from the outside. And we're going to see Bruno quite a lot over the course of the rest of this story. And we're going to find some tools that can help Henry work with Bruno and move beyond the things that he's trying to make Henry do. Mel reckons that their superpower for that could be agility, and that could help them learn how to work together. So Mel thinks that agility in leadership is taking short, fast action, changing plans based on what we know now, creating hypotheses about what we might learn next, celebrating anything we find out, good or bad, and having empathy and kindness towards others. And she thinks it's central to everything and could well be their superpower. And Mel also tells Henry that the McLean loop of leadership agility might be useful. It's a tool for individuals. It can help guide towards comfortable, more open feelings when we're dealing with challenges and uncertainty. And it can guide us towards better outcomes with personal and practical tools. But it won't be easy because we're going to see Bruno around quite a lot. Nothing about any of this is easy. So here's a peek at the loop. This is what I have created over the course of the last couple of years. I'm going to take you through each part. I'm going to give you a lot of information. What I'd really love you to do is be present and be with me as we go through it, because I'll give you a link so that you can see the loop and you can see everything that I've said on my website. So there's no pressure to try and write everything down. Just try and be with me and take in what you can. Okay, so Henry and Mel are going to start at the consider part of the loop. And the consider part of the loop is about figuring out what you already know and deciding whether you need to continue on the loop or not. So we're thinking, where are we now? And there are some tools to use at consider. So a system visualization might help you. You could look at quantitative data available. You could use an unknowns and knowns framework, or you could look at case studies of previous similar challenges. And each part of the loop also has a set of questions. These questions are about awareness. Throughout each stage, checking out how you feel. If you're feeling a bit stuck, come to the questions, see which one speaks to you, and see if it gives you something different, a different lens to look at your problem at. Now, these questions might trigger your Bruno, or they might help the calm to return when Bruno is there. But there are a set of questions, and there are more on the website for each stage of the loop to help you to be aware and come through that. Okay, Henry goes in about finding out what they know. And he finds out information using all the tools. And he asks the questions which show him that there are some gaps in what they know. But he's already having pressure from his seniors for answers. He's got people imposing solutions on him, looking over his shoulder and questioning everything that he's doing. And that's the same person that asked him and told him that he would have autonomy for this project. And when he tells Mel about this, she says, that's your Bruno being triggered by their Bruno. We have to accept that this will happen, and we have to try to treat it with kindness and deal with it. These are the things that happen to us just naturally. So Mel asks Henry, do you think you have solutions already? Do you think there are things that you can predict and repeat in the future? Because if you do, then we need to find the best and most efficient process for dealing with those repeatable and predictable things. If you don't, then we can move on into curiosity. And Henry says, I don't think I have anything that's repeatable and predictable yet. So they moved straight in to curiosity together. And this is about where we learn about the unknowns. So you might have opened up some gaps within the consider phase, and we're starting to explore those a little bit more. And Mel asks Henry what he thinks curiosity means. And he says, well, I think curiosity is about asking questions, but when I think about being curious, I feel like I'm going to be a troublemaker. If I'm asking questions, people will think that I don't know what I'm doing. People think I'm incompetent and I'm just trying to make trouble, and I don't really want that. And Mel says, I can completely understand. We are rewarded in our society by asserting our views and providing answers quickly. It's countercultural for us to be that curious person in the room. But curiosity is absolutely crucial for this because it gives us freedom from judgment, speculation, and assumption. And again, there's our Bruno. So some tools that you can use in curiosity. Our user research colleagues have some incredible tools for helping us to be curious. Clean language, stakeholder, all the maps you could ever think of are good for curiosity because they help us to make sense of what we're finding out, but they also help us to notice gaps in our knowledge that we might not have considered before. And service blueprints can be good for that too. And there are a set of questions that come with curiosity, and they're around figuring out who you maybe haven't considered speaking to yet. And also checking in with yourself and checking in with your own biases and your own motivations, and just making sure that you are in that open, free from judgment, speculation, and assumption place. So Henry moves in to the curiosity phase with his team, and he feels like they're on a roller coaster. They're speaking to all the unrepresented voices that they've made a note of as a team, and they've approached each with curiosity and anticipation. And the people who are answering their questions are absolutely loving being asked because they've never been asked before. But the results are confusing. They thought that they knew what people were going to say, this team. But it turns out that everybody has different needs. Will it be an electric car? Is that the future? Is it not? He's losing control and he's under pressure to just do it. He's under pressure to make detailed plans and just go. But he knows that he couldn't. He feels like he's micromanaging, and he really doesn't like that. And he feels like he wants to get off the ride and just stop. So what's going on here? So all of this is making Henry's brain feel a threat. It's having a threat response. So we need to talk about Bruno. Bruno is what's making him feel like he's losing control, making him want to make detailed plans, making him want to micromanage, and making him want to just pick a way forward and do it. It's trying to give him comfort. That's what it's trying to do. It's a comfort mechanism. But Henry knows that all of those things are not rational. He knows that they're not right. So Mel tries to help him out. She says, your brain needs to unlearn and notice what's not working anymore. It needs to discard those things, let them go, and make space for something new. Because if learning is tough, then unlearning is harder. And we get trapped believing that the things that helped us yesterday will also help us today. And that's because our brains need certainty. But the more you notice what isn't serving you anymore and you let it go, the better you get at doing it. Again, it's about awareness, about recognition, and about acceptance. So we got Henry, and he's climbing up the loop, trying to unlearn, because once he's made space, then he can start to connect these people together and try some things out that he's not tried before. So we move into connect. Connect is where we bring people together, we empower those people, we give them a license to lead, we give them the tools to unlearn too if they need to. It's about agility, about quick, short, fast action, simple, safe experimentation. And we need to remember that our Brunos will be around in this space. So we need to acknowledge them, accept them, and Henry's got an obligation to his team as well. So he might need to be telling them about this and helping them understand their own responses and their own Brunos. So when we're in the connect phase, there are so many tools, and it's literally my favorite part of this whole thing. And I can wax lyrical about all of these things, but I'm not going to in the interest of time today. But we've got psychological safety tools. One of my favorites is a superordinate goal, which I learned from Amy Edmondson. Again, all of these things are on my website. Systemic modeling comes from clean language. Continuous improvement tools. I mean, most of us are, I presume, working in agility, so we know about continuous improvement tools. Equal voice tools like liberating structures, design thinking tools as well. All of those things can help us connect people together and really help them make a difference as a connected, collaborative group of people. And that's something that I just love. I feel so strongly about being able to create those spaces for people. So within the connect phase, there are also some questions that you can ask yourself. And these are about looking after the space that's going on around you. So looking at yourself, have I shown vulnerability and trust? Have I framed the problem as an opportunity? Amazing the difference that that makes. Have I created a space where agendas can be left at the door? So using your superordinate goal, can people leave their agendas and come to a space that is more important than anything else? And are all the voices being heard? It's amazing how we can slip into bad habits and let some voices be louder than others quite easily. So checking in with yourself at this stage, making sure that we are doing everything we can to make this group as good as it can be. So Henry has a tough start. He is trying to be vulnerable, but he's not feeling great about it. He has no trust in his team. His team know that he has no trust in them, and he's micromanaging everything. And he remembers that Bruno's here. He needs to have kindness towards himself, and he needs to let himself unlearn. So what he did was he introduced them to his Bruno, and he told them about the hand-brain model, and they all shared a bit about their own Brunos and learned how to interact with each other in a productive way. And that started to shift things. They used some of the connection and equal voice tools, and slowly they started to connect with each other. They would regularly discuss their problems, their results, and they would improve the way that they worked together. This was agility in action. They did short, fast experiments, they learned loads, they had loads of failures, but in the main, they let their frustration settle and they moved on. They were making progress. The only problem is the thing they were making progress with. So it wasn't really just a new car. They were beginning to realize that they needed to create and change their whole system at Burns to make sure that it would be fit for the future. So that caused them a few problems. The only thing agility is guaranteed to deliver 100% of the time is impediments. If you're not coming up against impediments, you're not doing it right. And this was no exception. The types of things that Burns were coming up against were the software delivery being too slow, the policies being unsuitable, the budget structures being in the way, they needed expertise that they didn't have. And of course, it's not just the car. There's a lot more to it than you originally set us out to achieve. So we've got Bruno here again. And that's because Henry is used to working within the blockers that the company puts in his way. He's not used to trying to change them, but he realizes now that there's a lot of things going on that would need to change in order for them to achieve what they're trying to achieve and actually make it a good experience and a good thing for the future. This is really scary stuff for Henry. He's never had to do this before. But he knows that it could derail if he doesn't, and he doesn't really know what to do. So Mel reminds him that impediments are not in the path, impediments are the path. So Henry's sitting at the bottom of the loop and he's feeling a bit forlorn. Mel says to him, "You've unlearned a lot. It's time to relearn, to learn new things, and that'll give you new perspectives for old problems. You might have to reach out to other parts of the organisation or to your managers, and you might have to ask them to change too. They will have Brunos too, but they won't have been on the journey that you've been on. They might not have the awareness, the curiosity, or done the unlearning yet. You might have to help them to do that. You'll have to treat them with kindness." But she believes that Henry absolutely has the power that he needs to achieve this. Because this is what it takes. We need to break through those impediments to have real success. Now, this part of the loop used to be called close. I recently changed it to evolve because I kept getting comments that you can't close an infinity loop. Valerie, what are you talking about? So I did a bit of soul searching and a bit of thinking and decided to change it to evolve. So let me know what you think about this or any other part of the loop. But I do feel like it sits a bit better at this point. So evolve, tools to use. Impact assessments, imagination retreats. You could use the loop to help you evolve. You could use a kata or you could use change mapping. And the questions to ask yourself here are around the blockers, where you should be spending your time, the conversations that you now need to have. And is the problem being solved still the right one? Other teams need to unlearn and relearn. The loop might help them. We're not even removing things in evolve. Sometimes it's just a reimagination or an evolution or a tweak of a policy or just a relationship. It's just enough of an evolution to make something different and for us to be able to consider what's different now from what it was before. Maybe you have more things now that are repeatable and predictable. Maybe you can have a more informed approach. Maybe you've figured out you're solving the wrong problem. But whatever happens or wherever this takes you, that's absolutely okay. So Henry and his team delivered a success. They didn't just deliver a new car, they delivered the beginnings of a system that could completely change the way that Burns operates in the future. And they worked together with management to talk to them about what they needed and to make sure that they were doing things that worked for everyone. And they brought in lots of other teams as well. They kept helping each other to achieve their goals. They kept removing impediments for each other, and they slowly, slowly, slowly made it better. It's not perfect, but they are creating a culture of empathy, curiosity, and connection at Burns. So there you have it. That's the loop. It's multi-level, it's meta, but it's what we need in these complex times that we live in. It can help us with small problems and it can help us with big problems. And we don't need to start at consider, we can start anywhere on the loop. It's meant as a guide, it's meant to help you, it's meant to help your teams. Whatever you connect with today, hopefully it can be helpful to you. And it's really helped me. I've enjoyed the journey so far of creating this. I've had great conversations, I've had some great insights. And what it's done is it's helped me find the patterns, it's helped me challenge my experiences and make this even better. But it's probably never going to be complete because the world keeps changing and there are new tools and there are new things that we need to keep on top of all of the time. But the loop itself has helped me to take stock, check in, notice what's going on around me and make sense of that. I use it when I'm making workshops, when I'm thinking about a sticky situation, I use it at home, I use it at work, it's just stuck in my brain. The first time I did a talk about this was last April. And I came standing in front of a room of people that had come to a meetup in Edinburgh. And I said to them, very first thing I said to them was, "You're about to hear about the inside of my head." And it was nothing like it is now, this talk, but it was, here's a concept and here's a concept and here's a concept. And slowly they formed and evolved into something that you see here today. So it's just in my brain. This is the inside of my head kind of made into a picture. So I can see where people are in my work as well. So when I'm working with people, I'm going, oh, they're in a bit of a connection pickle just now, or they need to be a bit more curious. I can see what they might need, where they might need to go next. And in my job as an Agile coach, I can help to guide them in that direction. So it's been really helpful for me in those ways. But what I've realised is that we live in unprecedented times, and that's not going to slow down. It can take years to get rid of controlling bureaucracy, and we are never, ever done improving. We are still humans. So I'd invite you to figure out your Bruno. Share that with your teams, figure out their Brunos. It's amazing the difference it makes when you understand what each other feels and what each other needs when you're in that flipped state. Amazing what it can do. Suddenly you have a new language to talk about what's going on. And treat all of that with awareness, treat it with acceptance, treat it with reflection, and treat it with kindness. Because it's nobody's fault. It's just simply not that simple anymore. I'm going to leave you with a thank you for listening. You've got the link to my website there if you want to go and find out more. You can contact me on LinkedIn. Always hanging out on LinkedIn. And if you want to send me an email, you can do that too. That's all I've got. Any questions?
Yeah, thank you, Valerie. In the chat, there are no questions for your information.
Okay.
Any question coming from the audience?
Yes, I have one.
Please.
Hi there.
First, thank you for your talk. Was interesting to see the broader context around this agile stuff. But I'm questioning if this is really a loop, because in your example, it was more like the path for one project, and then the project was finished. And of course, you can restart with the next project, but then there's also, like a path that you always start from the beginning and run to the end. So there was no iteration through the loop during the project.
Yeah. this is the easiest way I've found so far of helping people understand it through a storytelling sort of lens. But I've done this with groups of people and they've come up to me after and they've said, you know what, I've really connected with curiosity. That's really useful for me. And they've taken it away. I made it a loop because I believe that you never stop. You have to keep changing and keep trying and keep connecting and keep being curious and keep evolving your situation around you to make things better. We don't ever stop. It's like a hamster wheel, you know, we just keep going and keep changing and keep evolving. Because that's how we have to deal with the complex world that we live in. So that's why I made it a loop. I understand the story might not have put that across in the best way, but I can reflect on that and I can potentially tell it in a different way the next time that might help people. Does that help answer your question, or?
Yes, yes. So I already expected it to be, of course, this is a simplified version, but yeah, I was more questioning myself if I really understood the loop and your example correctly.
Okay. If you got any further thoughts on that, then just drop me a note. I'm totally happy to have further conversations around this. It's what I do most of the time. Thank you.
Yeah. Any other question from the audience?
Hi. I wanted
Yeah, go, Leah.
question, but I want to say brilliant, brilliant, brilliant. I really like the way
Thank
you do things. It simplify and visualize the whole process, and it's so simple to explain it to other people and bring their own vulnerability and curiosity, because the connection of the human side. And I really, so I'm going to read it again, or probably listen to it again, and I'll find the recording, because it's really awesome to use on a day-to-day method to reflect to people what they're doing or what they can take from that reflection.
Thank you.
Thank you, Leah. Yes, in the chat, you can find the reference to the YouTube channel where actually you will be able to find the recording. Any other question? Okay, I have a question actually, Valerie.
Sure.
I really enjoyed this presentation. It's the second time for me, and I love better than before. What I cannot see here is the system around the team. So when we are talking about organization, normally we have a team that is trying to deliver something, and maybe the structure of the organization is not the impediment, but is not helping to deliver. So in this case, how can we use this Bruno to explain to the organization that maybe they are the Bruno?
Okay, so I think when we get into the tools and the evolve stage, that's when we're looking at the wider system. So you said that it might not be the impediment, but it's not helping. So my definition of impediment is something that's slowing you down. So I would absolutely include all of that organizational stuff, bureaucracy, whatever it might be, in that impediment bucket. And that's why it's so difficult. That's why our Brunos are always around at that stage, because it's something that we're not used to doing. We're not used to going over to HR and saying, do you know that policy? It really gets in my way. Can we talk about how we can make that better? And then you're starting the loop again in a different way, because you're starting and looking at a new problem. So you're considering what are the reasons why this policy is the way that it is, and then you're getting curious about it and you're connecting with those people. So yeah, if it makes sense, you can introduce the Bruno thing to those people. Bruno is basically, there's a bit of neuroscience behind it. If you watch the video, you will see it, but it's basically your cortex makes your decisions and your amygdala sits underneath. And when you flip your lid, your cortex can't talk to your amygdala. So you're not making the decisions that you would be making. If you can make as many people as you can across your organization aware of that, it gives you a slightly different vocabulary to use with each other, and it helps you understand each other's each other's behaviors. It does work best when you're in a team situation. However, if you went, for example, to HR and said, "I want to talk to you about this Bruno thing," they would probably be flipped straight away and would be like, "That what are you trying to say?" So you need to be careful about how you introduce it. But does that help? What I said there, is there a follow-up you want to ask to help you? Oh, you're
Yes,
muted, I
Valerie.
think.
Yeah, makes sense. Absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah. Maru, you have your hand for a question, I suppose.
Yeah, an attempt at a question. I don't know if it's in the right place here, but I was wondering, is there any part of the loop where you put some data oriented thinking, something that would be supported by some kind of data collection, or be orientated by some kind of data collection?
So a lot of it is about data collection. So when you're first at Consider, you're maybe looking at data that's already been collected in that space. So something that you're things that have come before you, like looking at previous case studies or looking at the kind of as is data. And when you're getting into curiosity, you might be gathering quantitative data, but chances are you'll be gathering quite a lot of qualitative data as well, because you're having lots of conversations. And when you get into Connect, it's about experimentation. So there'll be a lot of data-driven stuff in there. Not a data person, to be honest, but there's probably loads of things. Thank you for asking that question, because there's probably loads of things that I can now think about adding in as tools that can help people in each of the stages. So yeah, is there anything you were thinking specifically that I might be able to find out a bit more about myself, and then I can pop it in? Maru, I'm not sure if you're speaking, but I can't hear you.
Yeah, thanks, Valerie. No, well, yeah, I mean, I believe you that there's a lot of data. Now, I was wondering what concretely, what kind of, for example, for the curiosity part, how can that be supported by something else than some liberating structured workshops without any clear purpose? You know, some guidance about some things that any practitioner of the loop could use to orient themselves as they make the team progress through the journey.
Yeah. So, and for each part of the loop, I do have a list of tools that's more extensive on the website than it is in what I just shared with you, that can help you with all of the kind of guiding you through the next part of the loop and moving you towards the next one. So there are plenty tools on there, including liberating structures, one of my favorite things. So yeah, there's plenty on there. I'm not sure if I'm answering your question though.
No, thanks. Yeah, of course. I'll go and explore because I have.
Okay.
Yeah, thank you.
Just get in touch with me if you have any further questions about it. I'll be happy to help and explore it a bit with you.
Oh, thanks. I'll ping you on LinkedIn right now.
Okay, perfect.
Yeah, Nina from London. Nina, you there? Okay. So
Nope,
Tristan, yes, Tristan.
Hey there. Sorry, I missed
Hi.
the first about 5 minutes of the talk, so I may have got this wrong. But I was just reflecting on it while you were talking there. I have to start on a new team at the end of the month, and I was thinking that maybe I can reflect on some of this as to thinking about things I might need to learn or might want to be open to understanding how they are working and how the group is being led, or what I may have to take on as responsibilities for leading that group. So it resonated with me in that sense, as well as going forward with, because this is more from a leadership, is it the angle of this for the team and the leadership?
Yeah, well, I believe that everyone's a leader, or everyone can be a leader if they influence someone to take effective action. So, yeah, absolutely, you would be a leader in that space, whether your job title was team leader or not. But yeah, I work with a lot of teams, and yeah, I think there's a lot in there that can help you, and especially some of the questions around looking at what you're seeing, and as you get to know people. talking to them about some of the questions that are in there around curiosity, and then the connection things. Once you start to see how the team is connecting already, then there might be some things in there that can help you to put even better connection in with that group of people. So good luck with that. And please let me know how you get on and if you find any of this useful, because I love to hear that.
Good luck, Tristan, with your new team. Nina, are you there? I see your hand on.
Hello.
Ah, great.
Thank you for the presentation. It was really great, and it was so clean and very nice to hear. I have a question. It's somehow similar to the other questions. There is a structure as implementing a new project, as you said, in an organization can be quite overwhelming sometimes. As I have an example, my company is trying to implement the CPD program, and I'm part of the research team, and we are trying to figure out how can we start this, as it's not just a simple job, and we are a bit lost. And I'm wondering if, I don't know, you have some tools or a structure, some steps, a frame, something like that.
Okay. Which part of the loop resonated with you most when you were thinking about that, listening to me and thinking about your own context? I can put the loop back on, hang on. There it is. Oh, let me get through my builds first. I'm probably going to go too far now. There it is. So which part of it resonated with you the most when you're thinking about your own situation at the moment?
Just myself, or like my case, my project at the moment?
Either. Which would be more helpful for you to think about?
I think I am in the loop. As a person, I'm constantly curious about different things and trying to learn and apply. But it's one thing as a person, and Agile, it's more for organization, and I'm trying to collect all those ideas that I have learned in the past and implement them. I'm not in Agile, not an Agile coach, I'm an engineer. So I'm looking to step into this domain, into especially change management. I find it very interesting. And this is where I am. I'm trying to understand and apply what I learn.
Okay. So what I will say to you is what I found when I think about this, when I really deeply think about this, is there's probably about 20 loops going on in my life at any one time, if not even more, depending on the context that I'm in and the situation that I'm in. So with some things I'm in Considerate just now, with some things I'm in Evolve, with other things I'm in Connect. So I know I told a linear story, and I'm going to take that away most from your questions here, because I told a linear story when I was presenting the loop, but there are so many levels to this. And Nina, if you want to explore it more, feel free to reach out to me separately and we can have a further conversation. I'm happy to do that as well if you think it would be useful, because it sounds like your team you're probably needing a little bit of Connect somewhere, and you're probably needing a little bit of the Consider stuff, and probably quite a lot of the evolution stuff too. So yeah, you're possibly all in different places all at the same time, and that's okay. That's okay. But there are ways to kind of pull you back into a bigger unit, so that you're not so all over the place. And that's what it sounds like to me. But get in touch with me separately, and I can help you with that.
I will. Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you, Nina, for the question. If there are no more questions, and I cannot see any hands on, I want to say thank you, Valerie, for sharing this.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, just for the audience, give me some time to share the video. However, If you register to our Agile Meetup channel on YouTube, you will be notified when new videos will be available. And again, as I said at the beginning, you can find also many other resources. Again, thank you, Valerie, for this talk. I really love it. And thank you, everyone, for joining and making this event so active. Thank you very much, all. Have a great evening.
Thank you,
Cheers,
everyone.
everyone.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.